Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Navigating Possibility. I'm Dr. Christina Adams. Little quick disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast. I'm recording this podcast while getting over a little Christmas time cold that I caught from my family over Christmas. So if my voice sounds a little weird, that's what's going on. Hopefully, by the time I record the next episode, my voice will be back to normal. And thank you for bearing with me while I act in imperfection, which is one of my goals for 2026. So, I'm going to talk today about why I named this podcast Navigating Possibility. So if you're a physician who's ever thought, I can't keep doing this, but I don't know what else is possible, you're exactly who this podcast is for. So when I started my company, I hired a web designer to help me design a logo. And she came up with the idea based on talking to me about some of the things that I wanted to help women physicians with, of using a compass in the logo, and I thought it was brilliant. So the compass isn't just a pretty graphic. It represents something I want you to start trusting again. Your inner wisdom, your inner compass. Most of us went into medicine trusting our instincts, our curiosity, and our drive. And somewhere along the way, between training, contracts, productivity metrics, portal messages, and RVUs, we stopped listening to ourselves and we started outsourcing our decisions to fear. You already know what you need. Not always the answer, but the direction. And knowing the direction to go next is enough. You don't need a full map. You need a compass bearing. You need to know what the next right thing to do is. So many physicians I coach tell me, I don't know what I want anymore. But when they have time to slow down and listen to themselves, when they learn to trust themselves again, they absolutely do know what they want. It's just drowned out by all the noise. They don't trust their inner knowing because the system has trained them not to. We were trained to override our bodies, override our needs, our exhaustion, our emotions, override our doubts, and call it professionalism. But our inner wisdom didn't disappear. It just got buried under compliance and exhaustion. So let's start with the first meaning of navigating possibility in my mind, which is navigating the possibility that you could be happier right where you are, just by changing something that's totally within your control. Your thoughts. This is the part that honestly used to make me roll my eyes. I thought mindset work was gaslighting. I thought it was woo. I thought it was telling me to smile harder in a burning building. Until I practiced it in coaching. Here's the truth. Most people you interact with aren't trying to hurt you. Most people don't want to cause pain or interact with other people in a way that makes them upset. But they're operating from fear, from scarcity, from learned patterns that they never questioned. Many people just mindlessly replicate patterns of behavior they've seen in training. Your administrator isn't usually malicious. Your colleague isn't out to sabotage you. They're replicating what they were taught in a broken system. And here's the part that changes things. Your thoughts create your emotions. Not the patient portal, not the RVUs, not your medical director, but your interpretation of those things. Your thoughts about those things create your emotions. That doesn't mean tolerating abuse. It means you can give people the benefit of the doubt while still protecting yourself and setting boundaries. And it feels better to give people the benefit of the doubt than to blame them or think they're horrible people. So here's an example. Instead of, they don't care about me, you can try the thought, they're scared too and they just don't have better tools. This feels different immediately, right? And this isn't me telling you to be Pollyanna. It's taking back your power over your emotions, over how you feel. Because when you change your thinking, you stop bleeding your energy everywhere. Most of our suffering is not imposed on us by the actions of others, but by our thoughts about those actions. It's self-imposed, and therefore we can change it. which is hugely empowering to me. So the other thing that you could do to navigate to the next possibility, navigating possibility doesn't have to mean staying where you are. It could also mean deciding to leave for a place that serves your needs better for the next phase of your life. So, if you've listened to one of my first episodes, I've changed jobs several times in my career. Twice, I did it out of frustration and fear and scarcity, quite frankly, if I go back and look at my reasons for it. And I felt powerless to change anything where I was. And I wasn't really super intentional about the plan. It was reactionary, it wasn't intentional. The most recent time I made a change, I did it intentionally with planning, coaching, and clarity about what I wanted and needed out of my career to live the life I wanted to live. And it was a completely different experience. And I was so much happier with the change I made, and I still am. I may very well decide to change again at some point in the future because, let's be honest, working as an OB hospitalist up all night hits different at 53 than it did at 33, even if it is only 7 nights a month. This week, in fact, I'm going to a retreat with one of my coaches. It's time away from the distractions of work and home, and I'll be intentionally exploring staying where I am in my current OB hospitalist job, making a change to do something else with an OBGYN, or designing a hybrid path that combines both with fewer overnight shifts involved. And now I've learned tools so that I trust my inner compass to guide me. I never imagined when I came out of residency that I'd change jobs this often. Most of us don't. That's not how medicine used to work 20 years ago when I trained. But it's how it works now. I look at people in other industries. My cousins who live near me, one of them is a chief information officer for an insurance company, and one of them is an engineer for an aerospace engineering company. And they have both changed jobs several times, and every time they landed in something better. And that's just normal within those types of organizations. So why do we, as physicians who are highly educated and in-demand professionals, think we have to stay in one job forever? That belief doesn't come from a place of logic. It comes from a place of fear. Medicine used to be different. You joined a practice, you grew with it. The practice was able to adapt to your needs as you move through different stages in your life. And there are still some places that are like that. And if you're in one of those, yay, awesome. But that's not most of us. Now most physicians are employed, and most practices are corporatized. They're run by generally well-meaning business people. And I say well-meaning, at least most of the time, that's the case. And they're trained in business, so they tend to restructure things differently to increase efficiency and decrease cost, because that's what they're trained to do. And it works really well in some businesses. It works really well in factories. But clinics aren't widget machines. They shouldn't be run like assembly lines. The individual physicians in a practice have different needs to enable each of them individually to work smarter and more sustainably. We are humans taking care of humans in medicine. Trying to shove patients into 25 to 30 identical 15-minute slots in a day and force doctors to become widget machines is a recipe for poor patient care, moral injury, and physician burnout and dissatisfaction. And because flexibility is gone, everybody has to have the same schedule, everybody has to work the same number of days. That doesn't work for people. So we can't expect lifelong loyalty to one employer anymore. We can't just come out of training thinking we're going to stay in one place forever, because that's largely not how it works. Again, if you're in a place where you have flexibility based on how your needs evolve over time, great. Most of us aren't. We need to be willing and able to move on if a position is no longer serving us. Now, many physicians are willing to leave, but feel unable to do so because of things like non-competes, tail insurance requirements, fear of financial ruin. And most of that is scarcity thinking. There are ways to negotiate tail coverage or nose coverage with your new job when negotiating contracts. There are ways to navigate non-competes. And honestly, I think we should all just resolve to stop signing contracts with non-competes in them. The demand for our services as physicians is too high for us to feel trapped in a job. One of the other things that happens is that we have a tendency to make each other wrong for leaving a job. We need to stop shaming physicians for leaving jobs that no longer serve them. We do this to each other. I've had some uncomfortable things said to me when I've left jobs, things that quite frankly upset me for a long time, until I figured out that that was my manual for how those people should be behaving that was making me upset. So again, it was my thoughts over the things that they said to me, and they shouldn't say that to me, that made me upset. I've been mad when people left practices I've been a part of because yes, it increases call. It increases call for your colleagues, and it's expensive to recruit, and it takes a long time. But you know what? Those things are system failures. They're not moral failures on the part of the person leaving the job. Practices are built with zero excess capacity. So one resignation blows up the whole thing. That's not a resilient business. That's fragility. So the other angle that I looked at when I started thinking about calling this podcast Navigating Possibility is navigating possibility through advocacy. It's not just personal, it's collective. We need to navigate what's possible through collective advocacy. What is it possible that we can change about the system with concerted team efforts? Why don't we just say the system is broken and then wait for somebody else to fix it? Here's what I know. Nobody's coming to save us. Nobody's interested in saving us. And for those who say, I'm not political, okay, but everything about our field is political. And not just for those of us who are OBGYNs, where it's super political right now, but for every one of us. I'll do a whole separate podcast about my involvement in advocacy, but there are ways to get involved in trying to change the system, and we need more of us to do so. We can get involved in advocacy through organized medicine, through our state medical societies and our specialty societies. We have to stop just accepting that things can't ever change and make them change by working together to advocate for what we need. So one of the things that I learned when I first started getting involved in organized medicine and advocacy was the fact that trial lawyers often are required by their firms to donate a certain amount of money to their PAC. Money talks in politics. It's not right, but it's the fact. And we as physicians are really bad about donating to our PACs. So is it any wonder that lawyers get what they ask for and physicians don't? If every physician donated to their PAC, we'd be a force to be reckoned with. So in closing, I'm going to leave you with this reflection. What is your inner compass pointing toward right now? Not the whole answer forever, just the direction you need to go for now. And what might be possible for you if you trusted your compass. That's all for today. Thanks for joining me, and have a great week.